On February 28, 2023, a man went to the United ISD tax office to pay his property taxes.
Hello. Here to pay taxes.
Yes.
Here are all the receipts.
Thank you.
2 days later, the United ISD Police Department issued a felony warrant for carrying a firearm in a school setting by executing a literal raid on his home.
The chair now lays out House Bill 1760, House Bill 1760 by Representative Hefner. House Bill 1760 clarifies the law to make sure that public locations aren't claiming to be educational institutions and thus exposing law-abiding citizens to a potential criminal charge. Under the government code, a state agency or political subdivision of the state cannot prevent a licensed individual from carrying a handgun on government-owned or leased property unless that property is expressly listed as prohibited in the Penal Code 46.03. However, the law is somewhat unclear as to whether the prohibition of firearms applies to license holders when a school-sponsored activity occurs on property not owned or controlled by the school. There's concern that any public location where students are present, such as a field trip or school team stopping for food after a game, could be interpreted as a school premise while the students are there. Clearly not the intent of the law and an absurd result, but in effect, an individual with a license to carry could already be at the public location, legally carrying a firearm at one moment, in the Capitol, for example, and then hypothetically be subject to a third-degree felony charge as soon as a group of students enter the building. House Bill 1760 addresses the statutory ambiguity in two ways. First, it defines the terms school and post-secondary educational institution, so it's very clear as to what locations are included or excluded in the Penal Code. And it clarifies that the firearms prohibition for school-sponsored activities only applies to licensed to carry holders when the activities occur on premises that are actually owned by and under the control of the school. Let me be clear, this bill does not expand locations where firearms may be carried by licensed to carry holders. Prohibited places remain prohibited places. But without the distinctions made by this bill, the school activities prohibition can be misapplied and causing the results we've been describing. So it adds clarity to the law. And so it's important that folks know what the rules are so they can order their conduct. And with that, I'll yield for questions. Thank you, Senator. The chair calls Tara Micka to testify for House Bill 1760. And welcome, and introduce. You know how to do this. Introduce yourself for the record and give us your testimony.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tara Mitcha with the National Rifle Association in support of House Bill 1760. Thank you for setting this bill for a hearing and for picking it up, coming over from the House. This bill has actually passed the Senate twice and the House once, so hopefully we can get it through both chambers this time and across the finish line. As we've seen cities, counties, and private entities using loopholes in legislative language to prohibit firearms from areas the legislature did not intend to be off limits, House Bill 1760 seeks to clarify the application of the prohibition on firearms on activity grounds by adding owned by and under the control of a school or post-secondary educational institution. The bill also establishes a definition for educational institution, which amazingly does not exist in current law. Without this important clarification, claims could be made that any location in the state of Texas is an activity ground subject to a firearm restriction if students are present for a school-sponsored activity. You could consider the Texas Capitol as an example. There are field trips here all the time. Large groups of students come through here every day. LTC holders and permitless carry holders are not prohibited by law from carrying in the Capitol building, but a broad interpretation of 4603 in the Penal Code could call that into question when a school-sponsored activity is taking place here. Without that clear definition of educational institution in statute, as you said, the term will be misapplied to include any location where someone can learn something. This has been abused by places such as zoos and libraries and museums, which claim they employ staff for and conduct educational activities on premises, but they are clearly not schools. This bill will provide important clarity, and we appreciate your favorable consideration.
Thanks for your testimony. Any questions, members? Thank you very much. We'll open public testimony, and the chair calls C.J. Grisham, Wesley Verdell. And those are the only two witnesses we have registered to testify on for or against House Bill 1760. If anyone else wishes to testify, please step outside the chamber and register at the kiosk there. We want to hear from you. And good morning. Welcome. Introduce yourself. Give us your testimony.
Good morning, Senator Hughes and committee. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak. My name is C.J. Grisham. I'm the president of Open Carry Texas. I'm also the legal advisor for Texas Gun Rights, and I represent both of those as well as myself. Unfortunately, I only brought 25 copies, so I couldn't pass I only bought 10 copies, not 25, so hopefully you can see this, because this is what I'm going to talk about. On February 28th, 2023, a man went to the United ISD tax office to pay his property taxes. He legally carried what appeared to be a holstered handgun and a vest with a message that read, "Taxation is theft." Nothing was said, and there were no issues with the citizen paying his taxes. He went in, paid his taxes, walked out. No one mentioned the firearm. There was no interruption in services. Nothing was said to him. 2 days later, the United ISD Police Department issued a felony warrant for carrying a firearm in a school setting and carried out that warrant by executing a literal raid on his home with officers armed with actual assault rifles and kicking down his door. That's what this picture is of. The UISD tax office in Laredo, Texas is not on school property. It's not near a school. In fact, the tax office is about 5 miles from UISD headquarters and over a mile away from the nearest school. The tax office is surrounded by several car dealerships and is located across a busy street from Laredo International Airport. This is just one example of how the vague definition of educational institution has been interpreted by various government agencies. House Bill 1760 is important in that it protects Texans from the embarrassment and financial disaster that accompanies dealing with felony charges based on a broad or vague term. It clarifies what is meant by school, and we believe meets the original legislative intent in passing Penal Code 4603 to keep guns out of places where children are present to learn in a public education setting. Open Carry Texas and Texas Gun Rights believes that House Bill 1760 is necessary to clear up confusion, protect our children, and protect the rights of law-abiding gun owners, and we ask this committee to report this favorably to the Senate for passage.
Thanks for your testimony. Welcome. Introduce yourself. Give us your...
Chairman Hughes, thank you. My name is Wes Friedel, and I'm the State Director for Gun Owners of America. We have roughly a couple million members or so, a lot of those here in Texas. Just wanted to state that we support this bill. We think it's a great bill, and it defines what an educational institution is, which is needed in our opinion. And for time's sake, I'll close it at that, but thank you all very much.
Thank you both for your testimony. And that example, I had not heard about that case. Thank you for sharing that with us. Any questions for the witnesses? Thank you both for being here.
Thank you all.
Is there anyone else present wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 1760? Seeing and hearing none, there'll be testimonies closed. Bills left pending at this time.